The great halls of the Celestian Empire shimmered under 1,000 radiant suns, each beam refracted by the crystalline walls that stretched into the clouds. The Empire was known across the galaxy for its beauty, its wisdom, and the grace of its royal line. Yet on this particular day, all those gathered inside the palace felt an unusual tension. The court had been called to witness a diplomatic exchange between the Celestians and the newly contacted species from the distant blue planet, Earth. The humans were a young race by galactic measure, yet they had already proven themselves resourceful, daring, and unpredictable. Among the guests stood a man named Elias. He wore no armor, no crown, only the simple uniform of a diplomat. His eyes held a quiet strength, and his stance carried the weight of someone who had seen hardship yet remained unbroken. The alien courtiers whispered among themselves, wondering how such a being could represent an entire world. To them, humanity was a mystery, fragile in form yet stubbornly resistant to defeat. At the throne sat Princess Liara, daughter of the Celestian Emperor. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight upon water, and her eyes glowed with a gentle luminescence. She had studied countless species, met noble leaders, and heard the eloquent words of suitors from every starfaring civilization. But when her gaze fell upon Elias, something unfamiliar stirred within her. He was neither elegant nor adorned with jewels, yet his composure radiated something deeper than beauty, a courage born from struggle. The negotiations began, each word weighed carefully. The Celestians were cautious, the humans earnest. Elias spoke plainly without embellishment. He described Earth's desire not for conquest but for understanding. He spoke of a world still learning, still fragile, yet unyielding in its pursuit of unity. When he described how humanity had survived despite wars, famine, and near extinction, the court grew silent. Even the eldest advisors who had seen empires rise and fall leaned forward to listen. Liara found herself captivated. She had always believed that strength was measured in power or technology, but Elias's words painted a different truth. Strength, he said, was the will to endure. Humanity had no shields that could stop the storms of space, no starfleets that could challenge the old powers, but they had something else, the refusal to surrender. When the meeting ended, Liara requested a private conversation. It was a rare request, but the Emperor granted it, curious to see what his daughter saw in this human. Elias followed her into the royal garden where flowers sang with faint luminescent hums. The air shimmered with soft energy, alive and warm. Liara turned toward him, her expression thoughtful. "Your kind is strange," she said softly. "So small compared to the vastness of space, yet you speak as though you carry the stars within you." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe that's because we've spent so long looking at them. We dream of reaching them even when it seems impossible." She tilted her head, studying him. "You speak of dreams as if they are fuel." "In a way they are," he said. "Dreams keep us alive when logic says we shouldn't be." Liara's eyes softened. For the first time she saw not just a diplomat but a being with a heart that burned brighter than any star. The quiet confidence, the compassion in his words, it all unsettled her. Among her kind, emotions were measured and restrained, but with this human everything felt vivid, real, and unfiltered. Days passed, and the diplomatic visit turned into a series of shared discussions. Elias explored Celestian culture, listened to their music that could move the tides of planets, and learned their history of conquest and peace. In turn, he told them stories of Earth, of poets who wrote of love beneath dying suns, of explorers who risked everything for discovery, of ordinary people who stood against impossible odds simply because it was right. Each evening, Liara would find herself wandering toward the gardens where Elias often walked. Their conversation stretched into the night. She found herself laughing, questioning, learning. He listened without judgment and spoke without arrogance. For a princess raised among perfection, his humanity, his flaws, his uncertainty, his courage, felt like the most beautiful imperfection she had ever known. One evening, As the two watched the twin moons rise, Liara broke the silence. Among my people, we are taught that emotion clouds reason, that attachment is a weakness. But when I look at you, I see strength in the way you care. You carry the pain of your world as if it were a banner. Elias looked up at the glowing moons. Caring isn't weakness. It's what gives us purpose. Without it, what's the point of surviving at all? Her breath caught. She had heard countless declarations in her life, but none that reached her heart like those simple words. In the days that followed, rumors began to spread through the Celestian court. The princess was spending too much time with the human envoy. Whispers of impropriety rippled through the noble houses. Some called it foolish curiosity, others saw it as dangerous. The emperor himself summoned Liara and spoke with quiet concern. "Daughter, you know the traditions. A Celestian princess cannot bond with an outsider. The council would see it as weakness." Liara bowed her head, but her heart was in turmoil. She knew her duty, yet she could not silence the truth within her. When she saw Elias later that evening, she tried to keep her composure, but he saw the storm in her eyes. "You've been troubled," he said gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "My world would never accept someone like you beside me." He nodded slowly, a faint sadness in his eyes. "Then I'll stand apart if that's what peace requires. But know this, your friendship has already changed me more than you'll ever know." Those words struck her deeply. She realized then that he wasn't asking for anything, not favor or power, not even affection. He simply valued her for who she was. It was something no other suitor had ever offered her. The next day, a political crisis erupted. A rival empire accused the Celestians of betrayal, threatening to ignite war across the stars. The council panicked. Plans were drawn, alliances considered, and fear spread quickly. Elias, though only a guest, stepped forward. He offered a plan, one that would put him in direct danger. It involved using his ship and human ingenuity to intercept a hostile signal that could prevent an invasion. The Celestians protested. The Emperor forbade it, but Elias insisted. "I'm not just here to talk," he said firmly. "If peace means risking myself, then that's what humans do." Before anyone could stop him, he departed aboard a Celestian scout craft. The mission was perilous. The signal was trapped between energy storms that could shred ships apart. The Celestians believed no one could survive it. Yet Elias went anyway. Liara watched from the observation deck, her heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she prayed, not to the ancient gods of her people, but to the quiet strength she had seen in him. Hours passed. Reports came of energy surges, of interference, then silence. The court mourned. The emperor lowered, his head in regret. Liara stood motionless, her luminous eyes dimmed. Just when despair threatened to consume the hall, the sensors flickered to life. A faint signal emerged. The human ship was returning. When the docking bay opened, Elias stepped out, battered but alive. The court erupted in astonishment. Even the emperor stood, unable to hide his admiration. Liara ran forward, protocol forgotten. For a moment their eyes met, and the world around them vanished. "You're alive," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I told you," he said with a weary smile. "Humans don't give up easily." Tears shimmered in her eyes like liquid starlight. In that moment, every wall she had built within herself crumbled. She took a breath, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I wish I could wed someone like you, human." The hall fell silent. Every noble, every guard froze in disbelief. The emperor looked upon his daughter, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the emperor rose slowly and spoke. "Perhaps the galaxy needs more hearts like yours," he said, looking at Elias. "If our people are to find peace, let it begin with understanding." The court bowed, the tension dissolving into awe. Liara's words had not been a declaration of defiance, but of unity. Her admiration for the human was not just personal, It was symbolic. It reminded everyone that greatness did not come from bloodlines or empires, but from the courage to see worth where others saw difference. In the following days, the bond between the Celestians and humanity grew stronger. Trade began. Knowledge flowed. The two worlds learned from each other. Liara and Elias continued to meet, not as lovers forbidden by culture, but as kindred souls bound by shared ideals. Years later, when historians spoke of the great turning point between the stars, they always returned to that single moment, the day an alien princess looked into the eyes of a human and saw not a stranger but an equal. And somewhere beyond the shimmering towers of the Celestian capital, beneath the twin moons, two figures often walked through the quiet gardens, speaking softly of dreams, courage, and the endless promise of the stars.